guys, I'm here with Johndennis Govert and Hapi Hari. Or Hara?
It's Hapi Hara, yes.
Hapi Hara. Okay,
Yeah.
so they read this amazing book called the Chintamani Crystal Matrix. Except, am I saying Chintamani right?
Chintamani.
Chintamani.
Chintamani, yeah.
Chintamani. Okay. Um, and okay, how? So I met Happy at the Tucson Gem and Minerals show this year, and I went into this fossil store, and I don't know, I felt like I can kind of hear rocks. Like that's a thing that it's like a lame superpower I have. And I heard this like boom 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 boom, boom like this thumping or something. I looked over and did I see your Colombian or did you take it out for me? How did that happen?
I took it out. We were talking about some stuff and the book, and I pulled it out. And
And
I
I was
said,
like,
yeah. Yeah,
so
you zoomed right over, you know. And your eyes were getting big. Tell you were interfaced. The crystal pulled you over.
I could hear it. Like I sometimes can hear Jim's and I could hear it and it was very loud and it had like a heartbeat. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah, in fact, the rock we're talking about right now, here it is.
So
It's a
that's
Colombian. It's a
that's a
Colombianite.
Colombianite Tektite, and it's the
Yes.
biggest piece I've ever seen of a Tektite, like in one solid thing. Like that's bigger than a softball.
Oh yeah, it's the biggest Colombianite I've ever seen too. All right, and the fact that I actually was able to buy it, I feel really blessed. And in fact, in fact, I might have told you this story. Like I had seen it the day before. The day you saw me is the day I bought the
Right.
crystal. Well, the day before I had seen it, and I went to this booth to, I was looking. I was like, picked it up. I was like, wow, that is big. I bet that's expensive. And he weighed it, and it wasn't that bad. And so he and I, the Colombian and I, were like arguing about price. And sometimes you can put stuff down and walk away, and then they pull you back in. It's
Right.
the South American way of doing things. And and he didn't, because it's kind of like the end of the day. What he did is I started walking away. He turned off the light in his booth, covered everything up, and left. And I'm like, oh, I can't even go back and buy this now. And I thought, okay, well, it's not meant to be, whatever. And I walk out, I go home at night. This Colombianite got inside of my being in me all night long. And it was like basically telling me, he drew me back over there to go get him. It pulled me back over there the very next morning. Then what was really weird about this is like I was going back to the booth and he was really late getting back to his booth, and so I kept walking by the booth to like waiting for him to come back, and his booth was disappearing. And that's why it was still there, is because his booth disappears because he has so much Colombianite there and all these Lemurian quartz crystals and stuff that was causing his booth not to be visible. And I all of a sudden realized, oh wow, this booth is going in and out of visibility.
Yeah.
And so then I went back, I got it, I gave him his money immediately, made him give me another one, and that's how I got it. And then I met you later that evening at a different booth, and it was in my pack. I was there with another dealer who's really into Tektites. And he looked at it and he said, is that even real? He was really shocked at the size of it.
Yeah. I was trying to buy some Australian lights from him.
So anyway, this is very magnetic and it really pulls people in. And so some of the meditations I've had with it since is that it is a master crystal and it wants to be in the hands of masters. And it was interesting because I had Johndennis, who was a Tibetan Lama, and in my opinion is a master. He meditated with it and he pulled in information not only from his master, but from his master's master, okay, using this crystal in a cave in Tibet, right? Mm-hmm. And so this crystal can take you to some really interesting places. It's a crystal of the master.
I believe it. And it was fate that brought us together. And it was like,
it could have been this crystal.
Tell us about how this happened. Like, how did you guys get into this book?
So what was really weird, at the Gem and Mineral show several years ago, Johndennis and I walked into this booth of somebody selling Tektites, including Colombianite, Moldavite, Saffordite, Australianite, a bunch of the Tektites. And I started talking to him, and he started talking about the Chintamani stone, and I had never heard of it before. So then later on, I go ask Johndennis, tell me about this Chintamani stone. He said, well, it's a wish fulfilling gem. And I said, how come I've never heard of it before? And actually,
and I said, I don't know. You should have heard about it by now.
I know. But I mean, I kind of feel like this whole book, it was initiated by Tektites. It's like almost like Tektites pulled us into writing this book. But I mean, I think Johndennis should explain to us what the word Chintamani even means.
Yes, please do, for those that don't know.
Well, it's a Sanskrit word. So it's Chintamani, meaning Chinta is like wish, desire, but not just like, something that you want. It's like something you thought about or you care about, so it's like a deeper intention. And mani just means gem. So mostly it's been translated as wish fulfilling gem, but it could be like mind gem, thought gem, consciousness gem. I mean, so it could actually have those translations as well. And it has a bunch of different ways that you can encounter it, but the one that mostly people connect with is like some great gem that they have that leads them, like on some great quest. But the gem itself is to be used by somebody who's got a lot of compassion. So if it's held and used by somebody who is pretty like, selfish, then what it does is it creates difficulties in the world and creates difficulties for the person themselves as well as people around them. But so the main thing, like from the very first story in Hinduism, in the mythology, it was all about, it had to go to the god Vishnu, because Vishnu was the only one who cared enough about the whole creation that would use it for all beings, whereas the king of the gods would use it for the gods, and then grudgingly use it for the other beings that he had to take care of. But so it was like, it was not even safe in the hands of the king of the gods. It had to go to the Vishnu, the original three parts of God, the main part of what we would call. So we started to look at the gem, and through like different mythologies and experiences and encounters, we got led around on this. And so in a way, the whole writing of the book was like a hero's journey for us, because we just started out following something, and then I would say we are surprised at what we actually covered at the end of the book compared to what we talked about in the beginning. It's like, well, we'll cover this, and then it was that plus another 10 things.
I mean, this book is fantastic. First of all, it starts out, the first chapter or two is about Nicholas Roerich, or how do you say his last name? Roerich.
Yeah.
Who's like the real Indiana Jones, and he went looking for Shambhala with his family, like in like the early 1900s, and I'm obsessed with Shambhala because like I'm really interested in the inner earth, because I think there's a like breakaway civilization, and like I'm all into this other stuff, right? So I was just super drawn to that, and then but then the more I read on and about how basically the materialization of how everybody kind of like has a stone thing, and even stuff like the pine cone thing that people hold, even in the Vatican or even in like the Sumerian guys or everything. And I'm kind of going like, maybe that is the Chintamani stone. Like maybe this is all. But then I started thinking, well, I mean, like I'm not going to get political or anything, but I'm just saying, like, I started thinking it feels like Jafar has the lamp. It feels like somebody has or it feels like maybe somebody who's not a Vishnu currently has the wish fulfilling stone for society right now, because we're definitely, I mean, maybe that's because we're in like a Kali Yuga or whatever, I don't know, but it does feel kind of like society's going like wall wall wall, like in a funny way. So like those are all thoughts that I had like while reading your book, going like, whoa, maybe somebody does have the wrong intentions and has like some sort of materialization thing. And like let's talk about the intentions real quick, because I thought that was really fascinating. Like you said, it's almost like you start out with like material stuff, and then it's more like health stuff or stuff for everything, but where the final intention is some sort of basically everything's perfect.
Yeah, it's non-intention.
Right. Non-intention.
Yeah. Right, but you don't get to that until you get to the other levels, because it wouldn't make sense, for people to be there.
Yeah.
So I mean, the most part, I mean, for most people, the first level is just sort of like, I got to get through my life, and it's like the ups and downs of things, and especially when you're on the down, it's like, I really got to get through my life. So the energy of the wish fulfilling gem in that sense is taking you to accomplish that. And then you get to the next gem, which now we're in Marvel comic land. It's like, I am a superhero. I want to be a superhero.
Right.
And you're sort of using the gem because you're competitive and you want to be the best of whatever it is. And it's not really, I want to care for other people. It's just like, I want to be the best. And I want everybody to know that I am the best.
Right.
So that's like, second level. And then you get to sort of the third level, and then you realize that, you know what? I want to use this to like cut off my difficulties at the root. It's like, I don't want to encounter my difficulties anymore. I don't want to just treat the symptoms. I want to get right to the hardest stuff. So your intention is to like, let me get to the hardest stuff and stop messing around on the surface, and that's like the next level. And then you get to the next fourth level, which is, I'm never going to be happy totally unless people around me are also happy. So it's like we all have to become satisfied, happy, content, and excited and joyful together. And so it's like, how could I be like in that state and have everybody else in the world like being slaves or suffering or that sort of thing? So so now I have but because I have that consciousness, then that's my intention. And the last level is the intention of no intention. It's like, whatever needs to be accomplished in the world, let it be accomplished. And then you're not trying to steer it one way or the other way with your. It's like, well, I think I know what's best for humanity.
Right.
Maybe I do, but maybe I don't.
Honestly, I do a lot of one-on-one work with people doing like it's called astrogemology, like figuring out what crystals they need for their astrological chart. And this can be very intensive work. And I have noticed that crystals will work on one of three levels, and it really depends on where you're at. So in other words, like say if you're attracted to a ruby and you get this ruby, and you might be getting it because you think you want like energy and passion and love, or whatever all the good stuff ruby is supposed to be about. The ruby won't bring that in until you're actually healed. So it's going to work on your healing first. Kind of like unblocking the energy in, say, the root chakra. And then what it's going to do is work on balance. So it works on healing first, then it will work on your balancing so that you can actually bring in some kind of energy. And the last level is going to work on your empowerment. And so I think that's kind of a part of this too. Like the energy of the crystal will adapt itself to where you're at, okay? So you might be buying a crystal because you want to do something really great and way beyond, but if you're not ready to deal with that energy, it's just going to work with your healing first. And so I have also noticed in just working with people's intentions, like I do this whole kind of like workshop about it. Like first I say, okay, well, write down an intention, because what we're going to do is work on programming your quartz crystal with your intention, because you can program quartz. And so I have them first like write it down, and then we go through this process of like kind of clearing their chakras and kind of like going into a void state. Like, okay, forget everything that you think you want, forget your problems, let's go into a void state, let's do some clearing. And then when it gets to actually programming the quartz, frequently people will shift their intention because they were unclear about what they wanted. They needed some clearing first to figure out, what is the real problem? What do I really want? Do I even know what I want? I mean, trying to come up with an intention is actually, even working towards one, it's massive work. I mean, if you were given a genie bottle and they said you've got 3 wishes, I mean, you have to really think about like, wait, what should I wish for? Yeah,
I know. I think about the genie question a lot. Like I think I'm Aladdin a lot, and I think like, oh, and I have some commitment problems on what I would wish for. Like I'm like, oh man, that's because then you kind of go into, well, if I could get anything, like why would I be selfish, And then like the whole intention thing you just talked to. I mean, it's definitely an interesting. I also found your book to be very alchemical. in a way. You know, I thought this was kind of like an alchemist book or something. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, it is chapter 9. Like
Yeah.
this book really touches so many levels. But one of the really cool levels that I want to talk about with you guys are, and you just did a little snippet of it, but Atlantis. Like, so do you think that they were using the Chintamani stone wrong, and that's what like, you know?
I think there was a massive stone, you know, and Casey, of course, calls it the two-eye stone or the fire crystals, you know, and so it seemed to be like powering the whole kind of civilization. So I think that's one of our why we think about the Chintamani as that. I mean, you know, because it's like that's in recent history. I mean, you know, 10,000 years ago. Right. Yeah, I think they were using some massive crystal technology that was going on, and that it's hard to say if those crystals were manufactured or if they had found them, but you know, it seemed to have been at the root of things. And then there was that split in Atlantis of like, let's use it for human betterment, and the other one is let's use it for control of the universe. You know, and then the control of the universe people got the upper hand, and you know, the story goes, blew up Atlantis. You know, so you know, end of civilization because of that, using it for, you know, selfish purposes or for the wrong purpose, because it won't, in other words, it won't tolerate being used for the wrong purpose forever. You know, it's gonna like blow something up at some point if you're going down the wrong path.
Because ultimately that's self-destructive.
Yeah, it's ultimately.
And I also think like whatever crystals were going on Atlantis, and say if they were these supremely powerful crystals, I think that got embedded in our collective racial memory. I think like there's something inside of us, like it's an archetype, like the magic power crystal. It's inside of us because you find it, these powerful crystal myths in all cultures for thousands of years. And I'm always telling people too, it's like the reason we wear jewelry and are obsessed with crystals and even watch Marvel films about all the, you know, the power crystals that Thanos is after. Yeah. And even all the Indiana-Jones movies, I think it's because we have a racial memory that about these power crystals in Atlantis. I think we are collectively remembering this.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes tell, like, I have, because I've been obsessed with rock since I was a little kid, and my siblings and stuff would make fun of me and just be like, and I mean, a lot of people are like, oh my God, Nikki's it. Like, you can't take me anywhere without like me, like I look down on the ground all the time and like pick up stuff and like, but anyway, the thing is I kind of look at it as if I'm an electric guest on the planet, and these are like the wisdom keepers of Earth. Like, they've been here for a long time, and if they're honored enough to share company with me for, you know, my short duration that I'm on this planet, I think that's really cool to have something that's like, I think they have sentience. You know, and I think that they're like, so a lot of people will be like, well, what does that mean, crystal technology? So what do you guys like kind of say to people who go into that?
Well, the crystal technology part sort of, I mean, weirdly starts with ourselves, because it turns out that we've got crystals embedded in our pineal gland and in our ears. You know, we got calcite crystals. So to start with, we're already crystals. I mean, we've got like crystalline, and it's obviously connected to our awareness. It's in our head. So you know, so if there's resonance between crystals, you know, it's not a giant jump to say the resonance between what's the crystals that are inside your body and the crystals that are outside your body can pair up, you know, and so they can connect and communicate and that. So we, in a way, we said that they had sort of like inherent technology. It's like not something necessarily that people put into it, although you can
do that too. Yeah,
you can put information in crystals, but the basics of crystals is that they pair with our consciousness, you know, so we can respond to them, they can respond to us because we're similar.
And because I work with people trying to embed intention into courts, I teach them how to do that. I'm frequently always telling people, you know, like quartz is made out of silicon dioxide. So I have one right here. I have lots of crystals everywhere. All right. And so when you hear about Silicon Valley or silicon chips, that's what quartz is made out of.
Well, and they amplify energy, like legit, they're in your phones. That's what
right. That's exactly right. And so since we know that you can embed programming into this material, what you're really doing when you are interfacing with them is you're just cutting out the middleman. It's going straight from the brain, your supercomputer of your brain, embedding it right into the quartz. You're just cutting out technology, the middleman. Okay. And so, like when you think about our LCD screens and the ability that we can project images, onto walls or screens, that all has a lot to do with quartz technology. And so, when you hold a piece of quartz, because it's pyroelectrical, and you start rubbing it, you turn on its frequency, and it starts radiating out this pyroelectrical harmonic frequency and wavelength. That's why it can even be used in radios to transmit too. And so just when you hold one, it's going to be empowering like your bioelectrical field, amplifying it. And then when you hold it over your heart, because they use it in clocks and watches to harmonize ticking, you can harmonize your heart rhythm by putting quartz over your heart. And that helps you go into a deeper meditative state, helps you to open up your right brain, have more visionary experiences. And I think like when certain psychics are using like a crystal ball, notice that they rub it before they start working with it, because they're turning it on. Okay. And then the crystal ball acts as a screen, a projective screen for what's going on in the right side of the brain. So the image is in the brain, but then it gets projected like a screen into the quartz. And you can do that not just with a crystal ball, but just other quartz crystals too. I've done it many times. And I guide people to go in those visionary states all the time with quartz. So you can use quartz.
I did one of your meditations today with quartz. So you guys now have a YouTube channel. It just started.
Yes.
And I went through all 4 of your videos, and like I did the exercises and the meditations, and I thought it was really cool. I think you guys should keep up with that and keep going. I think that could be something really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I'm glad somebody listened to them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. In this day and age, it's so hard to, basically no one's going to come to you on YouTube alone. Like you're going to have to send it out to people, and then it's got to have to word of mouth it out. Like that's how it kind of works. But yeah, anyway, with the meditative state thing, I kind of feel, what's your feeling about cleaning crystals? That's like a big thing where people talk about that. I've never really been into that for some reason.
Well, you and me both. All right. Like, I mean, there have been times when I've worked with I've had some really intense sessions where I think there were even entities involved, dark entities. And somebody was working with a crystal, and I could tell some of the energy got dumped into the crystal. Okay. And so I remember like gingerly picking it up after the session, putting it outside and saying, okay, you go outside and play for a while, and because you got overloaded here, and so did I, and then, but even more importantly, I felt like I needed to cleanse myself. Okay. And so I frequently tell people, like, some people get all obsessed about cleansing their crystals and the techniques. The crystals are really old. They're a lot older than we are. When we're gone, they're still going to be here. They're really doing okay. Okay. And we're the ones who need the cleaning and the clearing. All right. So, if one feels obsessed about cleaning their crystals, I'm always saying, you know what? Maybe you need cleaning. Okay. I mean, I would put more attention into that than the crystal. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, if you want to like bathe them in moonlight, there actually is a research study out there that showed when you put quartz crystal in moonlight, it will clear the quartz. It will clear like noise inside the quartz crystal. Okay. So the moonlight does work. And then like they use salt water, but sometimes if I feel like my crystals need some work, the one I was telling you about, oddly enough, actually disappeared. Okay. I put it outside and it disappeared. And I thought, okay, that's all right. Moving on, Something happened with that crystal. I think it got too much overload and it had to move on.
Had to go.
You know, and I was okay with that, you know. But anyway, but I mean, sometimes there's been times I've put it in moonlight and stuff. And so I'll do that. I like to put them on grass on the ground out in the sun, you know. But you know, I'm in Arizona, so the sun is really harsh here. So I don't want to put all my colored crystals out there because they'll
Yeah,
bleach.
that'll bleach them. Like you could turn amethyst to citrine by putting it in the sun. I mean, like, there's all kinds of things you could
Oh
be careful
yeah.
with what you do with what.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so what do you guys think about the okay, the most fascinating thing for me. Okay, so sometimes I do wonder if there's the primordial Chintamani. Like when Nicholas went to Shambhala, he had like a vision of like the king of Shambhala who had on like a necklace that was the actual primordial Chintamani stone that was all the universe within it, kind of thing. So do you guys actually think there is an actual master stone of everything, or how do you feel about that?
I think it's definitely possible. I would be surprised if there wasn't one. You know, like I mean, I could okay, like
Or like
I
the
mean,
center of the earth, maybe? I don't know.
yeah, or even like say, you know, I'm just going to use God in a generic sense. I'd be surprised if God didn't have a big Chintamani stone, or that the Chintamani was God's heart or something. You know, like I
Yeah, like
or
like
that
that.
God even is a Chintamani, maybe. You know, like it's the ultimate because you know everything. You think about matter, everything comes down to molecules, which are like crystals. You know, to me, matter does not get into a more pure state than in crystals. And so
Mhm.
I think when we're dealing with crystals, I think we are dealing with the primordial matter. And so, yeah, I do think that there is, but I think there could be like a really ultimate master crystal, but then I think all of us have the capacity to attract and or create a Chintamani crystal that is our power crystal. And it may be a very individual crystal to each of us. Seemed like years ago, I think I read that Carl Jung said that all of us are working on a precious gemstone inside of us and we're chiseling away at it. But you can't see it, I can't see it, only God can see it. And sometimes I do one-on-one sessions. I'm trying to cheat and figure out, well, what is the crystal? Okay. So, and sometimes I tell that to people in one-on-one sessions. I said, you know what? Yeah, a yellow sapphire or a diamond or a pink diamond or you know, some sort of blue sapphire. I said, you really need to kind of focus on this crystal because it's saying something about your core essence and your core mission. And you need to get that crystal and really connect with it. And not that is it itself, but it's leading them. It's going to lead them to that primordial crystal within themselves.
Okay, so what about the I really liked the picture you took of the moldavite, like in a microscope. That
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah,
that
that
was fun. Yeah. Well, I knew that you could get the electroterralites and there are these like little spirals within moldavite. And so I put one in a microscope and I was doing the lighting. And I mean, yes,
Yeah,
it's that one. I'm
Mhm.
very proud of that photograph, by the way, because it was so hard to capture that. Because I was at 140x, which is, you know, pretty high. And, you know, and like, just like if you breathe too much, it's going to shake everything, you know?
right.
And so I captured that. And then when I got that image, I looked at that and I thought, wow, that's like looking inside a moldavite microscopically was like looking at the universe. I mean, it looks like a nebula there, you
Yeah,
know?
and I like the the underlaying or whatever, like
Well,
the
I think it's the electroterralites, that little circular spiral in there. I think that's what causes moldavite to have such strange energy. Like it's almost like an unearthly energy. You know, I don't know how much you know about moldavite, but many people who hold moldavite,
Yeah, there you
there's your
go.
moldavite ring.
yeah.
Yes. But many people hold moldavite, they can feel this like electrical pulse. And I even knew this one lady years ago who she wanted to change things in her life. So she got a Moldavite bracelet, and because she wanted things to change, everything started changing so rapidly that she said she took it off, gave it away. She said, everything's changing too fast. I wasn't ready for this. And then it all calmed down once she got rid of the Moldavite.
I started doing a lot. I put it in my mouth a lot, and and I would meditate with it in my mouth and like put it on the roof of my mouth. I don't know. I do that a lot. I sometimes I meditate with crystals if they're small enough in my mouth. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know. Nobody ever told me to do that. I just do it. And yeah, and I'm never, yeah, I'm not gonna swallow them or anything. But anyway, I started having like this duplication thing where random things like eyeliners or like phone cords, or I got 2 electrical toothbrushes, or I got 4 like like those brushes that you're like when you're washing your hands with, like to brush, like just weird stuff was duplicating. And I kind of, maybe I should go back to doing that actually, because that was cool.
But you couldn't control what you were duplicating.
I couldn't control it, and it wasn't like my bank account just duplicated like
Right.
No, it was just like, oh, you want 2 broken phone cords? Coming right up.
Right.
Wild energy. You know, usually at the gem show, if I walk into those rooms and there's a lot of Moldavite, I start getting spacey immediately. I get ungrounded quickly because I'm an Aquarius anyway, so I have to really work on grounding to begin with. And so I kind of I work with Moldavite a little gingerly because it's like maybe I don't really need more of that because I'm already kind of an Aquarius, you know. And so I'm kind of obsessed with Moldavite. I have a lot of it. I've been buying it since I was a teenager when I first discovered it. And so I have quite a bit of it and I love it, but I do kind of like I kind of keep some space from it sometimes because I know it'll take me way out, you know, like extra off the planet kind of stuff, you know. Yeah. And in some ways I do kind of like the Columbianite and the Saffrodite. Maybe like when I hold them, they send me out in a different way, but maybe it's a little bit more grounding for me, you know, probably because of the color.
Okay, so somebody I think you guys should check out is my friend Bruce Fenton. I've had him and his wife on my channel before. They are really interested in Australianite. And so, like, for those who don't know what Tektites are, they're supposedly, like, if a comet or meteorite hits the ground, it's the debris field of the strike, of the actual impact strike. So it's like where the glass fuses together. So it's like meteor impacted glass. Okay, so that's what the conventional people say that they are. But, like, they have this whole thing about how they really think it's like a crystalline ship that came in and blew up in air, and it's the scattered pieces of different crystalline ships that blew up, which is really interesting how they got there. Like, some crystal skulls told them some of the stuff, and, like, I mean, I don't want to butcher their story because their story is, like, way better than what I'm saying. But what I do think is curious is that the strewn fields, meaning like where the Tektites go, they found them like all over the ocean, and it doesn't make sense to me that Tektites should be in the ocean, because if I'm a meteorite and I'm like coming into the ocean, I think there would be enough cooling down and impact resistance to where I wouldn't produce quite as much Tektite when I actually hit the ocean floor, if I'm the actual meteorite. And not only that, but you wouldn't think that it would spread the way it does over some parts of the ocean floor, and think something doesn't add up about the story that we're given about all Tektites. That's what I'm saying, especially once we have this like weird connection. A lot of people have this weird connection with them. So has anything like that come up in your studies?
Well, it could also be, I mean, like when the meteor impacts occurred, it was before there were oceans too. And
I guess
so,
that's true.
I mean, all right, so there you could say that story, but I do find, I have actually wondered this myself. It's like, why is a meteor impact causing these rocks to feel so weird?
Yeah, when the meteor itself doesn't feel that weird. I mean, I
Yeah.
like meteors too. I have a huge
I
collection.
mean,
But.
I have some meteorites too, but I'm not in love with them. Okay. Like, I don't get the same vibe off of them. Okay. Now they're made of totally different materials, but to me, like moldavite and columbianite and saffronite has a whole nother frequency going on that allows me to go like sometimes interdimensionally, sometimes it causes invisibility states. Some, people are reporting these huge transformations with them. You don't hear this nearly as much with meteorites. And that's the actual material that's supposed to be coming from outer space. Tektite is really, it, if you go with the going story, is really something that blew up and is like really kind of maybe terrestrial and extraterrestrial material that is like turned to glass, in a sudden instant. And
you wouldn't think would make it thereby that's its origin story. How would that then make it be like, and now you get to go intergalactic? I mean, it's
yeah, no, I mean, I have questions about tektites too. They have a very, very different frequency than meteorites do. So yeah, I agree with you.
Now, Johndennis, I remember you kind of seem to have more of a, from what I've listened to, it's more about finding the internal gem within yourself.
So yeah, that's another use of it, or it's another way to find it. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, can you kind of go into that for us a little bit?
Well, the first of them, actually, I mean, partly we need to go like to our discovery or connection with the crystal skulls, because we didn't really expect that we would talk about that in this book. So we each went and had like some sessions with crystal skulls, with the Mitchell Hedges skull. We had, it had come to Phoenix, so we, drove in for that. And then we discovered that there was a crystal skull in Tucson called Synergy. So it was like, suddenly there was crystal skulls around. And the main, I would say, experience, I think we both had something like it. Happy can talk about hers, but it's just a sense of like that your body is really crystalline. I mean, it's like at the base of it's like crystalline, and then it can feel like, solid crystal. But then if you just wait a second, you realize that it's like almost like a liquid crystal itself. So it's like you could say, I don't know if you want to say your energy body or your spirit, or maybe the layers of your body are all crystalline, but that's really sort of like part of it there. I mean, so that's one part of it. So if you have that quality, that means that you can draw that, you can create a Chintamani, from, in your mind first. And so there's definitely a number of Tibetan Buddhist techniques, where they're talking about how to fuse this mind jump. And then the weird thing that we found really as we went through it, as like that I think our third chapter, where we go into like just pictures of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, it's like we found out that the Chintamani was like everywhere. It wasn't like one or two Buddhas or Bodhisattvas had. It was like they all had it in one form or another, and sometimes in several forms within the same picture. So that meant it had to be something, just cutting to the chase, that had to do with our enlightenment. If you have a Chintamani, that means it's like you have an enlightened mind, or vice versa. If you have an enlightened mind, you can find Chintamani. So so the meditation, then, one of the meditations is actually to discover what this crystal is. And we were discussing it a little bit earlier, is saying, well, it's like your crystal. It's like you can call it your power stone, but it's your power stone to help you in life, but it's the stone that guides you to your place of enlightenment, which could be a journey to Shambhala. But it's like however it appears or manifests for you, that's what you're trying to find out about. So I don't know if that answers where you were going. Yeah.
Well, okay, speaking of Shambhala, so do you think Shambhala is a interdimensional place, or do you think it actually physically exists on our plane as well?
I think from all the teachings and readings that I've done, it's that it actually is like a place that sort of like fuses with the earth, and then it sort of like comes in and out of like the earth plane.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll touch down for a number of years at some place and then separate and go off. And so there's like some rhythm to it, like landing. It could land in the Himalayas, or it could land in the mountains of the Andes, let's say, the high mountains of the world. So it can kind of connect. And we do have like these legends with Camelot, like it was like Camelot came for a while and we created a different world, or the mists of Avalon, and then it pulls apart and it goes away. But it seems like there's this back and forth of like what this place is. And so it actually fuses for a while, I think, at the earth and then moves off, but you can still access it interdimensionally without, when it's in its non-coupled phase with the earth.
Mm. Yeah, I've told this story before on my podcast, but probably, I mean, sometime during COVID. So me and my niece were on a walk in some woods, and they were like the original oak woods in Dallas area, and so they hadn't been like cut down yet or anything. And I thought like I just heard a squirrel or something, and I looked over, and there was like a little foot tall man, and he was like sweeping something, and I stopped my niece real quick, and she was 8 at the time, and she was like, "Oh, well," and I was like, what do you see? What do you see?" And she's like, "A little man sweeping leaves." And I'm like, what's he wearing? What's he wearing? What's he, like a pointy hat? I don't know, like leaf colored stuff. And I was like, okay. So like I bend down, I'm like 6 feet from this thing. It's like right off the path for me. And he won't look at me. He won't look over and look at us. And so, and I'm trying to hold her back to like not go touch it or whatever. And then I'm like, "Hey, like, how are you? Hello, we're not gonna hurt you. We're just come in peace. Like, I'm Nikki." Like, and wouldn't ever look at us. Just would stop sweeping, kind of look around, and then sweep again. And then he started going in and out of visibility, like something out of the Predator or something, where it was almost like you could see his invisibility cloak go off, and then it would pop on again and go off again. And then we sat there for probably like 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know how many minutes. We sat there for some time watching him, and then finally he went completely invisible and wasn't there anymore. And then we moved on. But my point with that is that it really does make me, I mean, sound crazy, but also it makes me feel like there is something to these dimensions that can come and go, and like are here and aren't here at the same time. And I don't know if that's through frequency, or if that's maybe it was because this was an old oak grove. I don't know if this was because I was at a portal. I don't really know what was going on with that. But I wonder, like, I don't know, that thing you just said about Shambhala makes me think like, okay, well maybe it's going in and out of frequencies where it can kind of be here and not.
Mm-hmm. Well, even like we even began, like I was trying to go back to that man's booth where the Columbianite was, and it was turning invisible. Like I also realized I'm having a hard time finding it because it's turning invisible, because he had so many like of these Columbianites in there because sometimes I think like Columbianite and Saccharite can go invisible. I've noticed this several times. Or even when you're holding them, it can cause you to become invisible too. Like, so you can go into another state, okay? We're calling it invisible, but it really means you're going into another state.
You're going somewhere else. Yeah, you're not existing. It's just...
Yeah, I mean, even like this, over this past weekend, I was in Sedona. I was at a vortex, and I was holding a Columbianite, by the way. And all of a sudden, I sensed something above me. I looked up, and there was this light ship above me. And I just barely caught it, and boom, it all of a sudden went invisible. And I sensed it though, and I was thinking, okay, I'm in a place where I'm going in and out, but I was holding a Columbianite at that moment too.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So no, I think you and I both have had these things where you see them and then they disappear. And I've had instances where you'll see like light beings and then they disappear. And so, I mean, I feel like you told me a story about a unicorn that you saw.
Oh yeah, I did in Colombia. Um,
Yeah.
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 Which
And
I
that's,
feel like I was at a portal.
hmm
I was supposedly going to an Atlantis offshoot. Like the myth I was going to was a place that was a breakaway civilization from Atlantis, um and like you had to do all these things to get in. You couldn't just get in. Like you had to be completely pure. Like you had to be like no sex for 6 months, no meat for like I don't know. There was all these things that you had to do to get in, which I didn't even know about that before I went. But like anyway, I did. We went with way too many people. We did not get in, but I did see a unicorn. Actually, a unicorn touched me on the shoulder, and yeah, and like and the two guys I was with at the Gem and Mineral show were the two guys I saw that we witnessed the unicorn together. So the three of us all got together again at the Gem and Mineral show. So
how cool. That reminds me of like some of the experiences you had in the Andes,
Mhm.
where, you were like trying to contact these light beings on the top of the mountains. But as I remember what you said, like you were with too many
Yeah,
people and they wouldn't come down because there just was too many people,
yeah, it was
you
too
know.
chaotic.
hmm
yeah, I mean like I actually have been visited by like these four blue balls of light that came into my room when I was in India. I was at Oroville. I don't know if you've ever heard of that place. It's pretty
Yes.
cool.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, so I was at Oroville and like these like they looked like basketballs of blue light, but then they like came to me in the middle of the night and like woke me up because it felt like I was diving underneath water and like the pressure was like 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 my ears needed to pop or something. And then so there was like two basketballs here, two basketballs here, and they're like a cerulean blue, and then they elongated to like a watermelon, and then you could see like just kind of like a figure of a head in each one, and then they started like whatever they like that was a really interesting cool experience. That's actually my very first podcast I ever did was about that. But I don't know what those are or what they were. I don't know. Like I'm like, are they aliens? I don't know. I don't know what does alien mean really. Are they from Alpha Centauri? I don't know. I don't really know what that means. So uh I definitely think there is something to frequencies of being in the. But with that in mind, I also have to say, yeah, you don't see things with a lot of people, and they don't want to be filmed, and they don't want to be.
Mm-mm.
It's not for everybody. It's not
Mhm.
if it's about proving you're right to stuff, that's not going to really work.
Well, and sometimes you see these things when you are by yourself in a more meditative state anyway.
Mm,
So that means you have to be in a certain state yourself in order to even see them. If
yeah.
you're with a whole big group of people and everyone's talking about lunch or whatever, I mean, you're not in that state to actually see these special places or special beings or, whenever I see something like out in hikes or something, I'm usually by myself, and so because then you're more open to communicating with something that might be unseen.
Yeah, and I also think like I don't have a lot of fear. I mean, I'm almost stupid, don't have a lot of fear. Like I just don't have I just kind of came out of the womb like that. I'm not I mean, I backpacked Europe alone for 6 months. Like I just, like I just don't care. Like it's not that I don't care, it's just that I know I'm fine. I know I'm going to be fine. Like I'm not scared of anything in the world. So, I think that is also I've noticed that if you're scared of stuff and you're always like, oh my god, I'm not going to be safe being alone on a hike, or I'm not going to, then you're not going to see something. You're not going to see something crazy if you have fear all the time around you.
Yeah, and also, but it's also goes the other way if you're too obsessed. Like I've known a lot of UFO hunters who they go out looking for UFOs, and of course they never find them. Because they're like they want the ship to come in and pick them up, or they want to have that interface, and so
Yeah.
then it's
I've
almost like that obsession is pushing them away too.
yeah. I feel like and I also sort of feel like the people who want to see UFOs and haven't is also a lot of times that's uh they have an idea and an expectation of what it is, and they
Yes.
also have like uh I think they're secretly scared.
Yeah, they probably are. They want to control that fear. Yeah.
Yeah. They want to have control of the situation.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
So, okay, this you guys are doing you're doing so is it you Happy that's doing the readings? Cuz like on your website for this book you have a couple of different readings that people can sign up
Well,
for.
I do crystal energy readings, astrogemology. Johndennis does more, like, well, tell him what you do.
Well, regular Western astrology and also Chinese astrology.
Okay, all right. I saw that on there too. Yeah.
And Johndennis is a feng shui expert too.
I'm sorry, you have to repeat that again because your mic cut out right
Oh
there.
yeah, Johndennis is a feng shui expert as well.
Oh, okay. Like, um, that's cool because I was always wondering where should I put my bed in my room, like feng shui stuff. I'm really interested in that. So you also talk about there's like a Chintamani yoga.
Yes, yeah. There's sort of like um, a type of yoga that's sort of like Tibet, like Tibetan. It's a species or another iteration of Tibetan yoga, and so it in the beginning part it has to do with revisioning yourself as like what you call a deity. So for I guess the quick part of that is because we look in the mirror and we see a karmic face, that's who we think we are. But actually, we're really already much closer to being what people define as gods and goddesses. I mean, that's really more it's not exactly what we are, but it's like that's more close to the image that we have. So if you turn that around and you start visualizing yourself as that, then you start to get closer to your own original source anyway. So that's part of it. And then each of these, they're called yidams, not necessarily deities, but they each have a chintamani. So it's like you can use like a clear quartz crystal to start with, just as the support, and you can just imagine this is a chintamani, and then over time, what you're going to do as you're doing your practice, you're going to replace this maybe with other crystals or gems that are closer in resonance to who you are and what you are. And then at some point, if you can't find any of these things on the earth plane, then you're going to have to sort of fuse it from your idea of different gems, and then it has to be like something that you're imagining, because maybe that gem isn't on this planet. You know what I mean? So it's like the only way you're going to find it is like by sensing it in that way, and then as you sense it, it becomes a reality. And then the gem itself then is like you can hold it your heart or at any of your chakras, but it just helps you radiate light out and receive light in. So in the beginning part, it's like a support to your practice. It gives you something to hold on to,
Like
and
a training wheel.
yeah, it is, and it gives you it gives you sort of like palpable energy that you can deal with and work with. And then eventually you're going to completely interiorize it, and and then you're going to discover what's already in the inner planes for you. So you're turning your attention inward to find what's already present.
So is this a yoga that you've developed, or is this one that's already been like a thing?
It's an adapted. I mean, I've adapted this to it's basically a generalized yoga that the Tibetans do. And then, what we've done is draw everybody's attention to the Chintamani that's present. And then you may feel close to like a Tara or a medicine Buddha or something. And then you can, because you're a healer or because, you're a person who helps people, resolve their traumas and difficulties. But whatever these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have as a life quality, then whatever Chintamani that they hold helps them accomplish that sort of activity first, and that's who you're sort of drawn to, because that's your natural resonance to, what you want to do in the world. Some people are drawn to wisdom. Some people want to, it's like wisdom's fine, but I want to do something on the planet, and help people. So, there's different versions of that. So I've sort of created a couple of just extra steps in the yoga in itself. So, it's like variations of it to help people.
Okay,
So
cool. And then so Like, are you gonna do that on your channel, or how do people kind of practice that with you?
Well, if you've gone through the first part, you had a little taste of it, those ones that are on the YouTube channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some of those meditations have that in there. And then we're going to do more, as time goes on, to go into it a little bit more deeply, and then, do some more guided meditations.
Well, chapter 12 in the book goes through some of that, okay? And then we do have plans on creating like workshops or courses, even online ones, to kind of to help people go deeper into working with the Chintamani and, even through the yoga too.
Okay. Okay. And then you guys plan to expand that out. Do you think there's going to be a book 2?
I think there's going to be some follow-up, because it's like we were led, I guess, if you read the last epilogue sort of thing, there we are in Nepal.
Well, I mean, the epilogue was so funny because I don't know if you read the whole book, but the epilogue it was telling us to write book 2 about Shambhala. So book 2 would probably be about Shambhala.
Woo, woo. That's like my favorite subject.
I mean, we have ideas for it already, and it's just, well, right now we're kind of like working on kind of marketing the Chintamani Crystal Matrix right now, and we have to talk to our publisher. But yeah, we definitely have ideas for book 2, but the epilogue is sort of like almost like the teaser at the end of a movie,
Well, and it just happened because we didn't plan on writing it, and then we were down to the last maybe week of doing the editing. It's like, we've got to turn this in now. We've got to turn this in. And then Happy said, well, we have to do an epilogue. I said, well, what do you have in mind?
Since you like Shambhala, it kind of goes in that direction, and it was interesting because it was about these Tibetan monks that one of them was going through the wall and going into another dimension. Okay. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden a Chintamani crystal was being mentioned when I was going through that story. And then there was another Tibetan monk that was searching for Shambhala in the Himalayas. And so we mentioned him. And it's like a launching off point. Like we kind of feel like the Chintamani is definitely connected to Shambhala. And
now, are you guys going to go to the Himalayas?
Oh, I would love to.
Yeah.
Can I come?
Can we go with you?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. I definitely feel I mean, the Dalai Lama is supposed to guard the gates of Agartha, right? I mean, so which is the capital city of, isn't Agartha the capital city of Shambhala, or is Shambhala the capital city of Agartha? Am I getting one of those?
Well, what we found was like that's one of the templates for Shambhala, like inside the earth. But then there's also, you have the Dalai Lama saying to like some of his people, well, actually, it's not on this planet, but it's above the North Pole, and then it's like, well, is it a planet or is it a dimension above the North Pole?
Well, but then you have like the portal I went to in Colombia. You have there's talk of stuff happening at Mount Shasta. Like there's apparently some kind of, that's more a Lumerian offshoot or some, like, whatever, I don't know. But like sometimes they say that they're related. So it's like, I think Shambhala is also just, there's the stuff about the poles having entrances to in each pole, and that there's different races within inner Earth, and that like I think Shambhala is like one maybe continent of that exist of the other ones that there are. I don't know. I'm super fascinated, and I think there's something super to it, and I think that's where the UFOs come from. Do. So I'm kind of always like going like, maybe, but it's just a story I'm creating in my head, I'm sure. But like, I don't know. I pick up these little things and stuff I hear from everything because I'm always researching all this, and I'm like, ooh, what if this relates to this? But anyway, Shambhala is a big, massive piece of the puzzle. I
Yes,
think.
it is. Yeah, yeah, it is a big piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, if not the core.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're, yeah, there's this archetype of us like wanting to work with this, power gem, but then the other archetype is us, where's our true home? Okay. And so that's why there's a little bit of obsession looking for the lost paradise, the lost land, and
Yeah, I mean, we have amnesia as a species. We have amnesia.
Yes. Where's our home, our true home? Because I mean, we don't feel comfortable in this negative society. We're homesick for something. We know that they can be better. We know it doesn't have to be like this.
Yeah.
So I actually think the quest for Shambhala really is the quest for our authentic home. And oddly enough, because like even in the second chapter of the book, it's not like they were questing for the Chintamani. They had a Chintamani with them. They were using a Chintamani to help find Shambhala.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Chintamani can be, think of it as like a key or a guide to help you find Shambhala. That's how I look at it. The quest itself is not about the Chintamani. It is actually about Shambhala.
I mean, because at the end of the day, the Chintamani is still just like a three-dimensional wish-fulfilling stone, right? And like we're, immortal spiritual beings, if that's what you believe, but like that's what I believe. And so it's I'm trying to figure out how to, like I think you said in the book, like level up so I don't get reincarnated as an ant.
That's right.
Don't start over again as a microbe.
Yeah, it's a long journey that way.
Yeah, you're like keep going, evolving. So I think of crystals as tools. I'm always telling people, when you go buy crystals for some reason, to connect spiritually or try to get something done in your life, it's you who turns them on. Okay. When you hold them and you're interfacing with them, you're turning them on. So it's a two-way street. It's not like the crystals doing all the work. And then when I'm always telling people, like when you put crystals on, you bought them for a certain reason, tell the crystal what you want them to do. Like, in other words, you're the guy.
You're the programmer.
And then you're the one bringing in the bioelectrical fields too, to turn them on. And so that's why you want to wear your crystals with intention, work with them with intention, because it really is the mind gem then. I mean, once you have a piece of quartz in your hand and you got the frequency turned on, that is the Chintamani, and then you're using your mind to guide what that energy is doing. So this doesn't have to be that complicated.
Right. You don't have to go be Harry Potter and be searching for or Voldemort and be searching for the Philosopher's Stone. Like you can actually just, master, like you can change anything into this kind of thing.
Yes. And I've even found that crystals are an evolution too. Even at this most recent gem show, I ran across an aquamarine and I didn't like its price, so I put it back down on the heap. And then the aquamarine pulled me back. It wanted me to buy it. Okay. So then I had to deal with the dealer, and then I got it home and actually Johndennis and I were actually doing some kind of meditation. And so I decided, I'm going to work with this aquamarine. And I noticed like whatever mantras we're doing, it woke up. And I could all of a sudden, I noticed it woke up and became awake. And all of a sudden it had a new purpose, a new life mission. And all of a sudden I thought, wow, if I had not bought that aquamarine, it would just stayed in that heap, kind of inert.
Yeah.
And then I took it and we did something with it. And now I've noticed like it's evolving spiritually almost. I've had that happen with some other crystals too, where they want definitely.
I think they're happy to have interaction versus just like being in a state of, I mean, sometimes they're cool with being in a state of whatever. Cause like, I have a past life memory of being a stone, from this. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But like they experience time differently than we do. And, I think that it's kind of, it's exciting for them. It's like a little adventure for them too. Even if it's a blimp in their existence, it's like something versus nothing, or
Yeah.
something versus being, right? I got this giant piece of lapis, and it was, I mean, and I got into lapidary recently. Like I've been cutting stones and changing them into gemstones and stuff, because I belong to the gem and mineral club in my area, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy this lapis, and I'm gonna like cut it, slab it, and cab it. Well, no, I'm not, because I got it home, and it's like a giant boulder of lapis, and I cannot cut that. It does not want to be cut up. It is like, yeah, I know you paid 150 for me, but you're gonna like that's you're keeping me for it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Well, there you go. Like they kind of tell you they become what they
I've had
become.
some interesting. Well, I mean, because I'm a crystal dealer too, and then there's certain crystals I was tending to sell, and no, they decided they wanted to stay at home, And but I've had so many times where I'll buy a crystal, even one that I wasn't even really attracted to. I'll buy it, and then boom, I am reselling it. Sometimes it'll happen 3 hours or
Oh,
7
for
hours
somebody
later,
else. Yeah.
24 hours. And also I realized I was just the conduit to get a crystal from point A to point B. Okay. And I was just the conduit. That's happened a lot to me. And then so sometimes I have to practice a detachment because I love crystals, and I have a lot. But sometimes I have to practice detachment. Like, I also am a conduit for crystals too, to get them to other people.
I like that. I need to start telling myself that, because people are like, because I'm like, I mine a lot. Like I've gone to Arkansas, like I don't know how many times. I have like so much clear quartz in my house. It's very loud. It's a very loud house. But I'm supposed to sell it. I don't want to sell it. I can't get. I'm like a hoarder. I'm like a rock hoarder. And my brother's always like, Nikki, we're not gonna go digging for rocks or fossils or anything again until you start selling some of this stuff. And I'm like, no, I don't want to.
Well, once I became a dealer and started like buying crystals for other people, it really expanded me, and it caused me to get even more crystals. Okay. But it broadened me to the point where instead of buying crystals I was attracted to, I expanded the field and started buying crystals that I'm not attracted to. And I learned a lot.
Yeah, I could probably sell something I wasn't attracted to, but
yes, but you learn a lot by temporarily having it too. And then also you start appreciating, well, why is this crystal good for this person? Okay. And then it really expanded I feel like it expanded me as a person, because then all of a sudden I was appreciating crystals I never appreciated before, and valuing their qualities, so it probably helped me then with human beings too. That's a result. Valuing the human beings that you're not attracted to, So no, I'm glad I became a dealer and that I got to the point where I could detach from them.
yeah, I mean, and practice the art of non-attachment. I get it. I get it, but okay, so is there anything that I didn't touch on about this book that you would kind of like give us your elevator pitch for somebody? I should have started with that, but whatever, let's end with it.
We're going to end with the elevator. You first.
Oh, well, okay. So the Chintamani, so this wish-fulfilling gem, exists on 3 levels, like as great gems. And then you were talking about the primordial gem, but then there's like just great gems. We talk about like Hope Diamond and a number of other things that are in the book.
Coronation stone, or
where people have that, those sort of things. So they exist at that level, and they tend to flow where, like it's like power versus, benevolence. And they weave in and out of history. So they're at that level. Then there's like things like this whole field of gems. It's called the jewel net. The jewel net of Indra, but it's like all these gems exist like interconnected with one another. So if you connect with one gem, you could expand your awareness to it, and find them mentally. But then in physical practice, we play with them as, in grids, as when we're doing gem work with grids. And then the last part of it is we find this gem is like you create the gem, it's like creating but discovering. You're creating the manifestation, but you're discovering what the gem is, and that's your mind gem, for you, that leads you on your quest. So it's like there's these three sort of like levels of what the Chintamani is. So unless you have some modification there.
No, I don't have any modification. I would just say too that I think consciously seeking the Chintamani essence in any crystal that you come across, because I think there's a Chintamani essence in every crystal, okay, that's waiting to be awakened or revealed or somehow maybe even like recognized by us, okay, and then connecting that with your intention or where you want to put energy. But I think the whole why you'd want to do, like, say, some meditative practices or even Chintamani yoga is the whole process is to purify your intention, okay? So that you and the crystal are in perfect alignment, working with pure light and energy. That's really where you want to be going with this. And then once you're there, then it's like, I mean, you can create worlds, okay? I mean, it's massive. That's why the subname for the book is Quantum Intention, the Wish Fulfilling Gem. Once you are perfectly in alignment with the molecules and atoms of pure matter, and you're in perfect alignment with your intention and your focus, I mean, you work with the quantum realms. Anything becomes possible. But it's like, well, so I think of our book as like kind of giving people the tips, like how you start understanding this and how do you start working with it.
Awesome. And I will say for your all's book, it is a very well written book, and it is, and it flows. Like, I mean, it just flows so well. And it looks like it's like a college textbook. It's like amazing paper. I don't know how much you guys had to spend on the production of this puppy, but like, and the pictures are amazing too. Like, you have the highest quality of everything. I mean, it's just like an amazing book. I highly recommend it for anybody, even if you're not into crystals or Shambhala or any of that. You need to get it so that you become into that stuff, because this is like a great way to get you into crystals. If you're kind of like one of those people who's always makes fun of me my whole life about how, like, it's just like rocks or like whatever, you need to pick up this book, because this will completely change your perspective on another part of the world that you haven't really explored like you need to. So that's my pitch for y'all, like for you guys' book. I think it's an excellent book. I want to see more from you guys. I think you made a great team. And yeah, I mean, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you wished I would have covered maybe about?
Oh, no, I feel, yeah.
I think we've got the main things out there, right? We really have.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, you guys. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. Well, thanks so much. And we'll have to have you guys on again, like maybe next year or something, or when the next book comes out.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Ha ha ha.